Okay. Morning. Morning, folks. Morning. Morning, Anne. I'll get you up on the big screen and be able to see your comments. It's going to be one of the weeks, folks. Get ready for the full-scale puke attack. Full pageantry coming right up. £1 billion worth of pomp and pageantry while people starve, but we'll get to that. Anyway, morning, folks. Nice to see you all there. I'm nearly there. Bloody ball. I'm going to batter her in a minute. Not going to say that. Anyway, there's more than 100 years on board, so good morning, everybody. It's Indytruck Davy out the truck and at home in his office and his home in Salisbury, where it's overcast and 11 degrees. That's the weather forecast for Salisbury, North Lanarkshire. If you want to know what the weather's like where you are, look at your rain, bloody windy. Alright, so we'll get this review underway. Okay, this is a review of the weekend news, and we'll start on Friday, the 27th of May, 2022. Friday started with two main themes in the rags. Cost of living crisis and bailout for millions of people, and 400 rebate off on winter fuel bills for every household in the UK. Also, it was announced that benefits will be hiked in line with inflation in the winter budget, and the triple lock will return to pensions, which means pensions will also be hiked by the rate of inflation in autumn. That might help your granny make it through the winter. Might just help your granny survive the bloody winter. Alright, now, there were two papers which did not run with the Chancellor of the Exchequer's cost of living intervention. The National asked Labour voters if they felt betrayed. Because, let's face it, Sarwar, that must be Tracy that wrote that. Sarwar said prior to the council elections he would not go into coalition with any other party, and post-election jumped straight into bed with the Tories. So the National asked, do you feel betrayed? But the best headline of Friday was in the Star, and that was World No, as in chow on, 3. And apparently the Russians think that we've turned to cannibalism because of the Ukraine war, because something that the knobhead Jeremy Clarkson had said. I still haven't worked out what it is the spanner said that makes the Russians think we're eating each other, but hey-ho. But that was the best headline on Friday. Absolutely brilliant. Great way to round up the week. Right, moving on Friday. And the Institute for Fiscal Studies say people may require further assistance with the cost of living crisis in spring 2023. The IFS thinks that the energy prices may continue to rise after the cap has risen in October, and they expect prices to rise again in spring 2023. And that is because they're projecting that oil and gas prices will remain high. Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, says the winter aid package is a one-off, but the Institute for Fiscal Studies thinks the Chancellor will need to make another intervention in the spring, because it doesn't look as if inflation is going to stop at 10%. Food price inflation's on the up, and I see Tesco's is having a wee problem with tatties this morning. I wonder what that's all about, eh? Right, moving on Friday, and more travel chaos is set because the trains are here in Scotland are apparently in meltdown. But as it turns out, Friday and Saturday night they put extra services on. There's also travel chaos as 200 flights are landed by EasyJet. It had today with an IT problem. They thought they could get it fixed and everything up and running again by 3 o'clock on Friday, but apparently not, eh? So just as the English go on holiday again, they're a bloody holiday. There's travel chaos at the airports. And up here in Scotland, apparently the trains are in meltdown. Okay, Friday, here in Scotland, the Memorial Park to all those who lost their life to COVID-19 is opened by Deputy First Minister John Swinney. Right, the memorial is sited in Pollok Park, Glasgow, and the memorial park has QR codes, and if you scan them, then your phone will open up and let you hear dedications to the people who have passed from their loved ones, read by Robert Carlyle. Haven't been to the park myself yet, but I intend to go along. Right, moving on, Friday, in the Office for National Statistics say there's a slight rise in COVID cases in Scotland. The ONS said that in the last reporting period, 1 in 45 people in Scotland are carrying the virus, and that is up from 1 in 41. 1 in 41 people in Scotland are now carrying the disease, and that, I'm afraid, is up from 1 in 45 people. Okay, so it would appear there's a wee jump in the amount in people with COVID, but the numbers vary, so we'll not pay much attention to that, because let's face it, as far as the press and the government are concerned, and I mean the Westminster government, COVID is over. Right, moving on, Friday, and the public inquiry into the death of Sheikh Bayou is still continuing. Right, Detective Constable Ashley Tomlinson was in the stand to give evidence. Right, Mr Tomlinson tells the inquiry that it took 6 officers to restrain Mr Bayou. Mr Tomlinson told the inquiry he struck Mr Bayou on the head with his baton in an attempt to subdue Mr Bayou. Right, Mr Tomlinson tells the inquiry that he used reasonable force. Well, there's a bloody Davy says here, smacking somebody or that he'd be a metal bar isn't a reasonable force. It's bloody dangerous. That wasn't a reasonable force at all. Mr Tomlinson should be charged with assault. Batting somebody or he'd be a metal bloody bar isn't a bloody reasonable force. No, in anybody's books. Not in the bloody slightest. Is hitting somebody or he'd be a bit of metal acceptable behaviour. I don't care. There is absolutely no chance that hitting somebody to knock them out with a metal bar is reasonable force to subdue them. You don't know what damage you're going to do to their brain. Ashley Tomlinson should be dragged in front of the courts for assaulting Mr Bayou and admitting it in a public inquiry. Oofed. Right, moving on, and down that road in the House of Thieves and Carpetbaggers, it's reported that Bojo has watered down the ministerial code to allow ministers to break the ministerial code without having to resign. Davy says, I never seen that one coming, although bloody well should have, eh? After all, he did try to change the rules in the own partisan case and all, eh? And now that this committee's looking into Bojo, Bojo's just given himself a wriggle out. This is absolute corruption, and it's the road to dictatorship. And that's exactly what's happening down that road, and it seems to be happening in front of everybody's eyes, and nobody's paying a blind bit of attention to it. This is absolutely nuts. Let's have a look at what they've done on the road to fascism and a dictatorship, shall we? Let's have a wee look at what they've been up to. Tearing up the Human Rights Act, banning peaceful protest with a maximum jail sentence of 10 years, restricting voting rights, rewriting the rules to hold the ministers to account. These are all textbook steps to fascism and to a dictatorship. This is absolutely horrific. It doesn't throw in the human sources, the covert human sources bill that went through down that road, that allows officers of the state, i.e. the government, to break the law in the course of their duties, and for them to recruit your children to spy on you. Throw that into the mix, and fascism is definitely here. The fact that people are walking blindfolded into it, being led by a culpable media which is owned by the fucking fascists, is unbelievable. Wow. So, we are now in a dictatorship, and shifting Bojo is going to be very, very difficult. I think he's there for the long haul. He fancies himself as taking over from the monarch, or sidelining the monarch, but we've already seen him try to do. Hey, changes to rules on judicial review as well, folks. They're becoming unaccountable. We just can't hold them to account. Right, moving on. Friday. And ScotRail had added additional services over the weekend, and they plan to have full services restored within 10 days if drivers accept the new 4.2% pay rise. But that'll still be some 6 weeks away, because ASLEF will go to organise a ballot on whether they accept this pay rise or no. Alright, so we're going to be most of the way through the summer by the time the trains are up and running again. Right, that's the stories I picked out to talk about on Friday, so let's see what Saturday brought in. There was no imagination in the press over the weekend. It was recycling the same stories hour and hour again, just different wazzocks telling them. Right, so moving on to Saturday the 28th of May, 2022. Saturday started with one main theme in the rags, a potential black hole in Scottish Government funding in the year 2026-2027, according to the Institute for Fiscal Studies, a Tory right-wing think tank. Anyway, according to the IFS, Scotland will have a 3.5 billion hole in its funding if it remains in the UK. Right, because this is modelled on what budget or what little of our cash is going to be sent back to us through the house of thieves and carpetbaggers down that road. Alright, now the black hole only exists because Westminster controls our revenues, okay? I mean, right now, 90% of Sunak's bailout on energy bills comes from Scotland's resources. No Scotland's money, because let's face it, it's private companies that are making the money off of our resources, but our resources. Right, so all that lovely money, or all the taxation coming from these oil and gas giants, could have flowed into Scotland if we're independent, right? But that black hole, according to the IFS, is going to be 3.5 billion. Well, 4.5 billion is being raised in revenue from the resources of Scotland via taxation of these so-called energy giants. Now, if we were taxing those energy giants ourselves, even at the pittance that the UK's taxed them at, that 3.5 billion black hole would be filled easily. And £1 billion chance to give the pensioners a wee uplift in their pensions. Isn't that nice? Yeah, spanners. We'll get the Institute for Fiscal Studies got a crystal ball out and telling us we're going to be skint because Westminster's going to starve us. We're in money. We're in taxation. We're in resources. Feck, the Scots don't have zip up the back, don't they? How they managed to convince any of these spanners in 2014 that it was a good idea to keep honing their wages out to the guy next door, I have no idea. But it would appear there's a few right thick fuckers living in Scotland. Especially those in the chattering classes who voted on their fucking wallets, which are now empty. Spanners. Right, moving on. The other story of interest in Saturday's rags was the Sun having a go at Glasgow for not celebrating the Queen's 70th anniversary on the phone, throwing the platform was it a platinum, they're calling it, platinum jubilee. Anyway, well done Glasgow, I'm proud of the city, because let's face it, spaffing £1 billion up the wall in public money, when the citizens, when her subjects in Little England are fucking starving and can't put the heating on, and she's the only bastard and granny in the UK that can switch her electricity on to keep the house warm. Fuck. Mental. But anyway, congratulations to the Duchess of Balmoral. 70 years on state benefits. Well done. Anybody else with 70 years on state bloody benefits, the state would have put them down. Right, moving on, Saturday. Sees the Tories in Little England fear electoral defeat at the next general election. A poll out shows the Tories would lose 80 plus seats, including most of the red wall seats, and the marginals in London, and all the seats in the southwest, including Bojo's own constituency, right? But that would still leave them with 300 seats and able to have a first go at forming a government. So there you go, folks. we know what happened. They'll get 300, and the Lib Dems will jump right back into bed with them to support a Tory administration. If Labour wanted to form a coalition to take government, they'd require the SNP, they'd require the Lib Dems, and they would require the Greens, Plaid Cymru. And you've got to remember, the other thing that the Tories could do to get themselves a decent majority, or to get votes passed down there in a minority government, they could always fool the DUP again and bung them another £1 billion. So it looks as if Tory rule could be on the cards for, well, it is going to be on the cards. We've already spoke about gerrymandering of the vote. The Electoral Commission's new part of the government, believe it or not, so they're policing them fecking selves. 3 million people have just been booted off the electoral register because they can't get the right type of identification, and they're about to introduce the Boundaries Bill, gerrymandering the constituencies to favour the bloody Tories. Independence, anybody? Because that's what's going to be necessary to change the administration down that fecking road. Because if we draw out of the agreement, then they'll need to sort their own shite out. Instead of having us prop them up with windfall taxes because Mrs. Windsor is spending £1 billion of taxpayers' money having a fucking party while wee granny Elsie's running about on the bus to Style Aram. And Mo and Pa's going without the dinner so the brats can get fed. Mental. Right, where are we? Moving on, Saturday. And the press are all over Tory MPs submitting letters to the 1922 committee and on them having no confidence in Bojo. I don't think Bojo cares. Bojo knows he'll win the vote of no confidence, keeping him safe for 12 months. Because that's the stinger. Remember, if they do get to the 54 to 59 to bring a vote of no confidence, that's only 54 or 59 MPs that put a letter in. That leaves, I think that's about 314 and we're still backing them up. That gets interesting on Sunday, actually. Because Bojo's having an effect on that parliament down there. It's not good, but we'll get it on Sunday. Right, moving on. Saturday, and social media goes nuts at the news filtering through that Johnson has watered down the ministerial code to allow ministers who break the code in a minor way to stay in office. Alright. Now, the potential punishments rather than having to resign, folks, and I don't know if you know this, but the potential punishments rather than losing your job could be to have your ministerial wage docked for a few weeks, or to be put on the naughty step and not allowed to attend cabinet for a few weeks. Isn't that nice? Anyway, the other change to the ministerial code was to take out the wordings that makes which actually makes up standards in public life. So Bojo has taken out the requirement for ministers to act with integrity, honesty and transparency. So now ministers no longer need to operate with the minimum standard of honesty, integrity and transparency. In other words, they can do what they feckin' like. Right? And the other thing is, Bojo's pet, keeper of the ministerial code, Lord Gates, he gets a staff of his own to be able to watch and make sure that there are no major infractions of the ministerial code. Lord Gates and his mob will have a right to investigate any minister whatsoever, with the exception of the Prime Minister. If Lord Gates and his team, who are there to police the ministerial code, want to investigate Bojo the Clown, they've got to go and ask Bojo the Clown for permission. Now that's mental. And I mean mental. Where are we? Right, let's move on. Saturday here in Scotland, it's been reported that 1 in 10 Scots have still not filled in the census. In other words, 90% have. Right, it's time for the Scottish Government to start issuing fines, right, to those who haven't filled out the census. But what's interesting about this year's census is there are certain groups in our society who are of certain leanings towards the union who have been telling their members not to fill out the census. Why are they doing that? Because they're in the huff that Scotland ran its census a year later than our UK. So there are certain people who have thrown their dummy out the pram because the Scottish Government decided it was better not to send out the census in the first year of the pandemic. They wait until things could calm down a bit and civil servants could function properly and send the census out. One online and in two paper versions. Okay. The other reason why the census hasn't been been full to capacity this time to 100% or near as is because this is the first time it's actually went online. You know, and people are just not used to that. They just aren't. Okie dokie. 163. Okay, comments, mental. Right, moving on. Also Saturday, the Tories claim a memorandum of understanding with the American state of Indiana proves trade deals with America can be done. Right, now, there's two things wrong with the shite in the press on Saturday about a trade deal being struck in America. One, it wasn't a trade deal, it was a memorandum of understanding. The trade deal would have to be done with the state of America, you know, the central government. It's a memorandum of understanding. And two, it's a single American state. It isn't America. It's a single American state. But here we have the press and the idiot that's now trade minister claiming that the trade deals with America can be done and that they are doing it. They're no. A memorandum of understanding isn't a trade deal. A memorandum of understanding with a state within a federal a nation isn't a trade deal. So once again we've got the press misleading the people. But the people in England are gullible. They'll soak that piss up. They'll actually believe it. Mental. Anyway, why are the Tories and their tame press peddling this crap? Well, Brexit's gone completely Pete Tong. It's a disaster. Global Britain 2.0 has failed. And the Tory arrogance that thought previous colonies in the Commonwealth would rush to trade with us, with the UK, was mental. Right after the Brexit vote in the Commonwealth, when Charlie went out to see them, the Commonwealth told him straight, there's no fucking way we're getting back into bed with used bam pots. He raped, pillaged and murdered us the last time. Wow. So the Commonwealth have got no intention. So that just left little England with nobody to fucking trade with. Because here in America we've got Biden saying, hey, BBC, when the BBC would want to interview Biden after he get elected, it says, Mr. Biden, it's the BBC. Mr. Biden turned around and tell him, I'm fucking Irish. So no trade deal with America, never mind a memorandum of understanding with the state of Iowa, or Indiana, mental. So, Global Britain 2.0 has failed, kiddies. It would be funny if it wasn't for the fact it's affecting our economy as well. Right. And that was funny and all about the black hole, the supposed 3.5 billion black hole the IFS says there will be in Scotland's budget in 2026, 2027. I was pissing myself laughing because the Tory spokesperson, Liz Smith, and the Labour spokesperson on a finance, Daniel Johnson, both came out and blamed it on the SNP's mismanagement of the economy. And it was running in the newspapers and it was on the BBC. Now, why was that allowed to happen? Because Daniel Johnson and Liz Smith both know that the economic levers which controls the economy lie in Westminster. And that only one fiscal lever is here in Scotland. And that one fiscal lever is income tax. Now let's face it, everybody's fucking skint. We're in the middle of a cost of living crisis. You can't do nothing with income tax. Wow. Anyway, so there you go. Bojo's wet dream about a trade deal with America it disappeared when Trump got booted out of office. The UK's in trouble. It's facing sanctions from the US and the trade war with the EU. Little England has fucked all our lives up for a wee bit of pomp and pageantry. Well, they're going to get a shitload of it this week. I hope they've got their tellies on to see what it was they fucking left the biggest market in the world for. For some... Have you seen Regent Street down that road? It looks like fucking Nazi Berlin. Wow. Ori Union Jacks. And we're talking about fascism. What the fuck do fascists do? Huh? Ori Union flags. They're going to be plastered everywhere shortly. Some of Englanders deceived by their so-called betters, their elite, ought to protect their tax havens, their nasty little money laundromat in London. The Anti-Tax Avoidance Directive, ring a bell, anyone? Mental. Right, there are the stories I picked out for Saturday. I hope you found them entertaining, I hope you found them informative, I hope you found the delivery quite funny. Let's move on to Sunday, will we? What happened on Sunday? Well, fuck all that hadn't happened the rest of the weekend. Pure recycling piss. You know, you'd as well just not buying the papers on Sunday. You've already read it on Friday and Saturday. You know, a lot of bollocks. Anyway, so Sunday started with a mixed bag in the rags. The Times goes with Gray's Gray's diluted parties report after pressure. Down the street, mandarins demanded that the names of high-ranking civil servants were taken out of the Sue Gray report. It's also been reported that I will get to that. Right. Anyway, the only rag the Express goes on, Gove fights to save PM Skin as Tory MPs plot to oust him. Govey the groveler, wee backstabbing shite, says Boris is the best man to win the next election, and she's spinning like a top, going round all the Tory MPs trying to save Bojo's skin. But as I say, I think Bojo would survive a vote of no confidence. Theresa May did. Right, the other loony rag, the right-wing Mail, goes on, cheers ma'am. 18 years after the EU ordered us to remove crown symbols from our pint glasses, Boris brings them back for Jubilee. There's a couple of interesting things about that. EU didn't say take the crown off a pint glass. All it did was say put the fucking the volume in millilitres down below. That's what the EU said. The crown could have stayed on the bloody pint glasses. It's just that the people that produce the pint glasses decided it was too expensive to engrave bait or blast bait into it. Well, there you go. What a bollocks. Right, moving on. Sunday here in Scotland, the mainstream media are claiming that the SNP face a huge spending gap. Talk you fucking recycled crap. Anyway, Kate Ford said there will be tough choices ahead, and so there will. Even if we become independent, there will be tough choices ahead. Of course there will. Anyway, as I said to you, we were in a Tory spokesperson on the economy said it was mismanaged by the SNP, ignoring the fact that the levers over the economy, as I say, are held in London, in the House of Thieves and carpetbaggers, and they've brought havoc on the economy with Brexit and cutting us off for our biggest market. So there you go. Same shite recycled on Sunday as we go on Saturday. Right, moving on Sunday. And Operation Save Big Dog is in full swing. Remember that one, Operation Big Dog. Well, we're on Operation Big Dog 2.0. Along with Global Britain 2.0. You couldn't make this pitch up. Anyway, it's rumoured that on Wednesday, this is fucking brilliant. It's Govin's on the route spinning at the top trying to convince Tory MPs. See, same recycle pitch. That's what the papers were on Sunday. Recycle Saturday and Friday's news. Anyway, it's rumoured that on Wednesday, when Bojo faced the 1922 committee, he tried to convince them that being drunk at the wheel and breaking lockdown rules was fine because Churchill won the Second World War while being pissed, according to Bojo the clown. So it's alright for Bojo to be pissed at the wheel, because apparently Churchill did it during the Second World War. He's moved on for a big boy, done it and ran away to say, look, I'm just like that big boy. Fucking mental. Hey, brilliant. Anyway, moving on. Sunday, wild game. Go wee spinning like what was that name? Peas. The Sue Gray report is being rubbished as a whitewash. Sue Gray had knowledge of text messages proving Bojo's wife, Carrie Johnson, had organised 2 parties in the number 10 flat. This also drags the London Met Police further into the scandal. If Sue Gray knew about the parties, and did she withhold the evidence for the Met that Carrie Johnson had the 2 parties in the flat, the number 10 flat? Now remember, after Bojo's the party that Bojo and the Chancellor get fined for, after they'd finished in the Cabinet Office, they moved upstairs to the number 10 flat to carry on, arranged by Bojo's wife, Carrie Johnson. And apparently, when one of their special advisors left, you'll remember this one, the ABBA party. So 2 parties are known about, which Carrie Johnson has organised in the number 10 flat, but don't appear in the Sue Gray report. And it would appear the Met Office didn't, the Metropolitan Police, sorry, the Met Office, the Metropolitan Police didn't investigate them either. So, the press on Sunday are absolutely right. It would appear that the Sue Gray report is just a whitewash, and that the Met are culpable in a cover-up. The Met are culpable in a cover-up. We all know about these 2 parties. They were plastered all over the place. But Sue Gray doesn't mention the parties that were held in the number 10 flat, and the Met Office hasn't investigated, the Metropolitan Police, sorry, Met Office, what the fuck's wrong with me? The Metropolitan Police haven't investigated them. That is bloody interesting. Cover up right enough the papers. But you know what? The reason why the papers are doing this is because, let's face it, they are the right-wing rags. They are owned by the Tory elite. They're just normalising the shite that we're seeing day in, day out. Bojo breaking the law has been normalised. It's not the first time he's done it. He broke the law when he prorogued Parliament. And he's rewriting the laws to keep himself in power. Right, let's move on. Sunday and back here in Scotland. Ross Greer, Green MP, airs a view that many of us in Scotland hold. Ross wants the Tories to justify spending £1 billion on the Duchess of Balmoral's jubilee. 70 years of being Queen of England, in the middle of a cost of living crisis, she's going to have a party, Our subjects are starving, and our government's corrupt. Okay. Tell you, same shite that was recycled for Saturday and Sunday. Moving on Sunday, and the Northern Ireland Secretary, Brandon Lewis, this is the bit I was talking about when Bojo's infecting everybody down that road. Northern Ireland Secretary, Brandon Lewis, as the Cabinet Minister put up a face to press, right? Mr Lewis is asked about the revelations that Sue Gray's report had been watered down. Mr Lewis lied through his Tory teeth and said he didn't recognise the claim that the Sue Gray's report was watered down, and he claimed that the Sue Gray report was an independent report. So, do you know, if you break that down, folks, there's 3 lies in there. 3. I'm moving, Sarah. There's 3 lies in there. And that's just before we get to the second bit. Alright, now, he lied by saying that the Sue Gray report was an independent report. It wasn't. It was an internal report. It was commissioned by Bojo the Clown. He claims he didn't know about it or didn't recognise it. Bollocks. If he's in that cabinet, he will know that the cabinet put pressure on Sue Gray to water the bloody report down. Yeah. And where was the third one? Never mind, we'll move on to the next set of lies that Mr Lewis told, will we? Anyway, next up, Lewis was asked about Bojo watering down the ministerial code. And Mr Lewis said Bojo hadn't watered down the ministerial code. There he says, aye, he bloody did. We all know he did. He even removed the requirement to be honest, act with integrity and transparency. That's no watering it down, that's filling it. You know, And the fact that only he can authorise an investigation into himself in the future. Wow! So, it would appear, the interesting bit is that these Tory ministers lie with impunity. And it seems to be infectious. It started off with Big Dog, and say Big Dog 2.0, and it seems to have spread right through all his ministers. So, morality is out the window down that road. Honesty, integrity is out the window down that road. But it would appear that Bojo's habits are now infecting the rest of them. Alright. Anyway, let's move on. Sunday. And the last story for Sunday I want to talk about is Dover, the port of Dover. The English are on holiday again. There's still 23-mile tailbacks of trucks, but hey, that's accepted now. That doesn't even make a press. But apparently there's huge tailbacks of people trying to get to France on holiday. On a holiday. So, okay. Aye, okay. Trying to get to France and stay in holiday by the port of Dover. So the port of Dover is gridlocked. There's been people stuck in their cars for a couple of days. Now they know how the fucking truck drivers feel, eh? Yeah, I wonder if that'll start a wee elbow roll. Right, so that's the last one I want to talk about. As you notice, I didn't bother my arse talking about Bojo and his clowns talking about the reintroduction of the imperial measurement system because, well, let's face it, we go to the pub for a pint. When one of our kids have a kid, then we tell the world how big the kid is in pounds and ounces and what sex the kid is, you know what I mean? So, and of course, we still sell land in acres and hectares, and we still, horse racing still measured in bloody furlongs. So, I mean, the imperial system never went away. It just so happens the metric system's running in tandem with it. You know, we still buy petrol by a gallon, even though it's measured out in litres. Only in the UK. Let's move on to the smaller bit the rags have to say, because the dragon's starting to get impatient. As far as I can see, I've still got plenty of time to take her away, but never mind. Right, let's move on to the smaller, see what the rags have to say for themselves this morning, alright? What we got? UK Minister's tunnel vision to link up Scottish Islands. I've heard this piss before. There's no way that the money will be spent in Scotland. No one they're botching. And we certainly don't want the UK government doing it. If we're going to build tunnels between our islands, we want the Scottish government doing it. Because that way it will get done on time and on budget. Right, vision for bond layer tunnels to link Isles. Oh, pish. Mere tunnels. Bojo's going to build us a bridge to Ireland and all. Right, and we get this. The Times Scotland. Apparently millions of us are being warned of power cuts. Fucking power cuts, having a laugh. 97% of our power comes from renewables. Must be talking to the little Englanders who generate theirs by gas. Right, anyway, the Herald has Scots Food Bank struggled today with demand as cost of living soars. That's not even fucking funny. They're about to spend £1 billion on Lizzie. Take that £1 billion and get the bloody food banks. Right, the Record has Andy Gorham, I have 6 months to live. Sorry to hear that. He was a good goalkeeper in his day. The National has new respect pledge is set to underpin campaign for Indy. Hosey tells a big progress to Yes conference that a code of conduct will be issued for activists. I heard it. The Yes movement's a grassroots movement. It is nimble, it is quick, it is fluid. We don't need a code of conduct. We want a code of conduct for debate. Where you go and bow your head. I'll tell you what the code of conduct for debate is. If you start personally insulting the person you're debating with, you've lost your argument. Move on. The Eye has PM plans bonfire of EU laws to appease rebel MPs. So there you go. Another part of Operation Save Big Dog, except for this time it's Big Dog saving himself. And the Metro has Carry Party number 2. We've just spoke about the parties. What's the Looney Rag the Express got? Summer holidays, passport backlog, fears grows. It just shows you how incompetent the spanners are down there. But as far as I know, the passport office staff are still working from home. The Daily Telegraph has UK opens doors to world's top graduates. So it is. That must be a trade deal getting done with India. Free movement for India. And Jubilee Killjoy warns against unauthorised street parties. Apparently councils are telling people you need permission to have a street party. Yeah, who cares? None of us will be having a street party. The other loony rag, the Daily Mail, has 12 million to share Jubilee lunch with Queen. Well, that's a big lunch. I guess she can afford to foot the tab. Oh, sorry, no, that's us that's doing that. And what's the star got for us today? So long, fella. 1935 to 2022. This will be of interest to horse racing fans. Apparently, Lester Piggott has galloped over the Rainbow Bridge. Alright. So the star goes on the death of Lester Piggott. He had to get an innings, he was in his 80s. So he was apparently a top jockey. Davy doesn't gamble, Davy doesn't know anything about that sort of stuff. Alright, that's what I've got for you today. I better piss off and catch up with a dragon and take her to work, otherwise I'll get my head in my hands to play with. Now, I hope you enjoyed the review. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope you found it informative. We'll be back tomorrow to do it all again. Alright, you guys look after yourself. Have a nice day.